report on what's happening in media trends in Canada. The minister actually just set us up beautifully for the afternoon in terms of what's happening in funding content and creative content in Canada. And now we have Carolina Briceño. Did I say that? And she's here to give us a report on those trends that are in Canada, which hopefully, once you see them, you'll be able to take advantage of them. Carolina.
Beautiful. Thank you, Brian. So hi, everyone, and thank you for being there this afternoon. Thank you also to VIFF and the organizers for having me with you once again. This year, I love being here, so I'm always happy. We don't have that much time, and I have a lot of information to share with you, so I'm just going to jump right into the presentation. So for those who may not know, the Canada Media Fund is a nonprofit organization that was created in 2010 by the Government of Canada and the cable and satellite and IP distribution companies. Our mandate is actually to support the creation, and I'm meaning here, production, development, production, promotion, marketing, and so on, of Canadian audiovisual content and digital media content that are designed for all platforms. So my role at the CMF is actually to head the Industry and Market Trends Department. My team monitors and analyzes the transformations underway in the audiovisual industry, both here in Canada and everywhere else in the world as well. So we carry out this monitoring, research, and prospective analysis work through research partnerships, through the trends report that we're going to talk about in just 1 minute, and also through hundreds of analytical articles on different topics. So all of this industry intelligence is shared with all of you and all of whom you know are interested in these topics on the CMF Trends website. So we have a dedicated CMF Trends website. I invite you to have a look at it for yourself. You can also sign up to our weekly or monthly newsletters. So, oops, sorry, too quickly. As we have done since 2013, at the beginning of the current year, we've published the annual trends report, followed by our mid-year update report in July. So for 2017, our trends work has been focusing, or started, was based on the following premise. Technological innovations and the internet have completely transformed in fundamental ways our industry's infrastructure, consumption patterns and habits, audience relations, business models, and the competitive environment. What I mean here is that the whole transition and transformation is well advanced, not completed, but we are kind of far away now into that transition. So long gone the era when audiovisual professionals needed to be convinced that the digital tsunami was there and that we'd better get ready for it. Today, most of the industry's players, be they creators, producers, broadcasters, or distributors, have adapted or are forced to rapidly adapt to the new digital ecosystem. So just to illustrate how far down we are into that road, of that major transition, may I say, towards a more digitally focused content marketplace in Canada, here are some data points that are of interest. So based on national internet subscription first, TV subscription data, we reached the tipping point back in 2014. So it has been already 3 full years that in this country there are more internet subscribers than cable and satellite and television subscribers. Another indicator, of course, of the digital economy is the transfer of advertising dollars from television to the web. So in Canada, that tipping point happened actually in 2013. Since then, more money and more advertising dollars have been invested or are invested yearly in the digital platforms than in television advertising. Another transformation that is unfolding, just for your information, but the United States, the advertising dollars just reached a tipping point of convergence this year. So we've been there since quite a few years already. So another transformation is unfolding. As you know, our content consumption behaviors are turning to be more on demand, on the go, and all online. So just the time we spent online all the way, this one, no, that one right there, the time we spend online continues to increase significantly, and with 22 hours per week is getting closer and closer to the time we spend in front of our television. Obviously, we must be aware that all the time we spend online is not necessarily to watch audiovisual or television or film-like content, but nonetheless, you know, there's only 24 hours in a day. So if we're spending more of that time online, clearly there's little left for doing other things. Now, the audiovisual and television film content is also increasingly consumed online. In fact, is actually twice what it was in 2012. So luckily for traditional broadcasters, though, the time spent watching television is not decreasing as quickly. So all in all, we still spend 4 times more hours consuming television content in front of our television sets and not online. So all that to say that the observation that we're making for 2017 and beyond in this trends report is to the effect that this transformation, as I was saying earlier, you know, is well underway. Actually, each day, the landscape of media production, distribution, and consumption looks less like the industry we came to know a few years ago. So what we're seeing right now is major battlefields unfolding because every player, and I'm talking about both Canadian, foreign players, digital and legacy players, big players and independent, are battling hard to find a place in this new environment and also trying to position themselves in this evolving value chain, you know, that is emerging from this restructuring. So in the report, we analyze 4 major and hard-fought battlefronts. The battle for consumers' attention, and the main weapons here are discoverability and artificial intelligence. I'm going to delve into it just in a few minutes. The battle for user retention. We'll see how massive investments are made in original content and acquisitions, and a war is being waged between major platforms to offer services and features that are attractive to users. There's the battle for reach, where each player attempts to reach the highest possible numbers, including more and more, and this is what's new in that battle, is including audiences that are usually underrepresented or outright excluded. So we'll see in a minute how they do that. And finally, the battle for influence. And on this front, attention must be given to the investment flows in order to understand how the global playing field is evolving and to learn which countries are increasingly positioning themselves as hubs within the global content industry. So let's examine some of these issues in detail. First of all, who has never heard of GAFA? So the Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, or closer to our world in the audiovisual world of FANG, you know, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. The online world, we know this, is increasingly dominated by fewer and fewer platforms that are controlled by even fewer major players. It's a trend that we have identified, you know, in previous reports, but that right now is especially boosted by the rapid increase in use of mobile devices. So this situation is creating what some analysts call the discovery oligopoly. So what exactly are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about this oligopoly when a few major players control each stage of the consumer's journey. They manufacture the devices, they own the operating systems and browsers used to access the content, they control the discovery through search engines, virtual assistants, and social networks, for instance, and they are increasingly investing themselves in the actual consumption of content by controlling recommendation, among other things, and also, you know, when they're not the actual commissioning or investor in the content that is produced. So the main impact of this oligopoly is that we, both as users and media professionals, are collectively and increasingly dependent on these platforms to distribute and consume informational, cultural, and entertaining content. We are especially increasingly dependent on the underlying technology, and particularly on the algorithms, bots, and virtual assistants that are widely used by these corporations. All signs actually now points out that the next big battlefront, you know, to control consumers' attention will be in the artificial intelligence realm. So we are transitioning towards this increasingly algorithmic environment in which power centers are developing into data-rich companies that become serious competition to what we could call data-poor companies. So data-rich versus data-poor. We, however, acknowledge that these new artificial intelligence technologies are far from being perfect. And I think we have a lot of indications to that matter. Talk about it to Google and Facebook that, since the last presidential election have been heavily, constantly criticized because of the fake news, or the advertisers who embargoed YouTube this year for having seen their brands linked to suspicious or distasteful content. Also talk about it to those who depend on advertising for a living. Did you actually know that Canada ranks second among all the countries where the use of ad blockers is the most widespread on desktops? So this is a serious matter, provided that the advertising is one of the main business model, in the digital landscape. So more and more users are refusing to be constantly spied and or have, their choices influences the way the platforms decide to do so. So the fact that these technologies remain mainly at a development stage opens up an immediate opportunity for us, obviously, to understand the limitations, but also to try to better understand the possibilities. The filter bubbles everybody talk about that are generated by algorithms may prove actually to be extremely efficient in terms of targeted broadcasting in order to reach audiences that are already interested and easily convertible, as well as to build up communities of interest. This image is taken from a concrete example based on a case study that we posted on our blog. Unfortunately, I have no time to delve into details of this case study, but it deals with how Facebook advertising algorithms that are based on CPM, cost per miles, can actually help content producers to gain more information on their audience and consequently deploy effective marketing and promotional strategy for audience reach purposes. So, in short, by making smart use of Facebook algorithms, the producer of this project that is called Together Tales was able to actually test different audience hypotheses and quickly determine which community was the most inclined to convert and become fans of their project. So the producer was thereby able to correctly plan its upcoming promotional and marketing expenses. So yeah, algorithms are like black boxes. Nobody really knows how they operate except those who develop them. But these obscure computer codes actually generate visible results. And there's a way, to understand and to try to effectively use these algorithms. But obviously, we need to learn how to take advantage of them. Now, moving to the next chapter, digital players are developing their package offerings while the race to killer content, is still very, very full swing and very strong. So in the February report, we observed that on one hand, social networks were fiercely competing to acquire real-time broadcasting rights, especially for sports-related content. But on the other hand, we're also seeing major OTT players that are continuing to invest massively in original content, including drama, children's programming, and more what we're seeing, and that's new for them, is non-fictional content such as reality television comedy shows. So this image actually only shows you, the content budgets of players such as Netflix and Amazon. The budgets this year are set to reach $10 billion, but the amazing thing is that 5 years ago, it was actually zero. So it is a hockey stick, growth in terms of how much money these players are putting out there to invest in content. And this situation will continue to evolve after Netflix widely announced last June that it counted more subscribers in the US, i.e. 50 million subscribers, than all of the largest cable television companies combined, which is an aggregated number of 48 million subscribers in the US. So, useless to say that this frantic race is actually creating also a rising pressure on prices, not only, in terms of budget production, for drama and all genres, but what we're seeing is really a huge competition for talent, among other things. So this is an example of how Netflix is literally paying the double of what HBO used to pay, for instance, for a comedian for their comedy show. So it is a huge pressure. That being said, this new reality comes also, with another highly interesting trend, which is consumers are more and more willing to pay for the content they consume. So according to IDC, consumers are spending more and more money to access online content, even if that means that they must forsake purchases or renewing their devices. So global content spending will increase at an annual rate of 12.6% between 2015 and 2020, whereas the amount spent on devices used to consume this content will only increase by at a yearly rate of 1.6%. So 12% again. So that's an interesting transition from a device economy to a content economy. Maybe it's time for us, again, new possibilities and opportunities for content creators there. So let's move into the other chapter. Is there anyone telling me to stop at some point? Or you can just wave to me and, yeah. You're telling me if I'm going too fast or whatever. So I know it's a lot of information. But hey, bear with me. Diversity. In terms of both cultural diversity and gender equality, that's the talk of the town, right? In the past 12 months, the National Film Board, Telefilm, the SODEC, the Canada Media Fund, and many other organizations across the country have all announced permanent measures to achieve gender parity in filling all the key production positions in the audiovisual industry in Canada. And the idea, obviously, is to foster diversity both behind and in front of Canada. So that decision can only be applauded. But for sure, it's not just, a kind of passing fad. In 1981, 1 out of every 20 Canadians indicated that he or she was a member of visible minority. The statistic has today reached 1 out of 5. Statistic Canada's most recent census reveals the existence of more than 240 ethnic cultural origins. So let's talk about diversity, not only because, it's the kind of hot topic in terms of political will, but honestly because we also believe that it represents a major vector of growth and a fundamental asset for doing business in 2017. So in the update of our trends report, what we were really focusing on are all the value creation opportunities that are available within margins and audience that are usually excluded. And so the report actually focuses on 3 major barriers that actually hinder diversity and that we should work towards, kind of lifting. So first of all, the internet availability and connectivity. Obviously, there's huge progress that has been done on that matter, in the last few years, but we still a long way to go, especially in some emerging markets. And to that end, we have players like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube that are developing light versions of their apps. Actually, it consumes less data, and so they're meant to be more attractive to consumer in emerging markets, but they're also proving to be very attractive for data-conscious consumers all over the world. And what we've seen is YouTube, Twitter, and all of these platforms experience strong user base increase and growth following the launch of these light apps. The method of payment is another big obstacle that many players are trying to go beyond right now, because obviously if you want to subscribe, for instance, to an online or on-demand video on-demand service, usually you're going to pay with your credit card. Well, did you know actually that 73% of the world's population aged 16 and up does not hold a credit card? And don't get me wrong, this is not only in emerging nations, developed or underdeveloped nations. 21% of Canadians and 38% of Americans aged 16 and up did not own a credit card in 2016. So talk about an untapped market. And so we're witnessing more and more companies like Stars in the United States, offering their online services, through prepaid or gift cards or other ways or other methods of payments in order to go and tap into that excluded market. Finally, language. As you may know, most of the internet is pretty much English or actually Mandarin when you go online. But interesting fact, since 2000, in the last few years, we have seen other languages, growth on the internet going like crazy. Arabic, and the number of people using Russian has increased of 3,200%. But the interesting opportunity for Canadians here, and especially for French-speaking creators and producers, is that another language is rising rapidly. And according to the Observatoire de la langue française, the number of francophones will double in the coming decades, increasing from 274 million to more than 700 million in 2015. So that's an interesting opportunity also in terms of value creation. And here in Canada, obviously, because of both official languages, we are very well positioned to tap into that market. So I think I'm pretty much out of time here. I have 5 minutes, so I'm just going to finish. It's perfect. I only have 2 slides left. But this is the last chapter is all about the competitive landscape and how that is evolving, now that we all live in this global marketplace. So the digital revolution and globalization continue to have increased effects. But what we're observing right now is that the primary influencers, Silicon Valley and Hollywood in particular, are no longer the only ones that are setting the tone. New hubs are popping up elsewhere on the globe, including in the APAC region, Asia Pacific, as well as in China. And obviously, the announcement that was made by the minister early on, about making her first mission, cultural mission, right into that country, is a good idea in the sense that it's very aligned with that trend. So these countries are becoming key players in terms of technological development, investment, and also co-production. So I'm just going to give you one data point. I have several to illustrate, the growth of these players, but that one that talks to me a lot is that online film releases in China last year surpassed theater releases by 500%. That is unprecedented and huge. It was the first time that both, foreign films and domestic films in China were not experiencing a high growth in theater releases, but instead, I think it was 2,500 online films were released in China. So talking about, that huge transition to an all online world and new business models of distribution, they are creating a huge movement towards that transition again. And not to forget, the markets of Africa, Latin America, and Middle East are also expressing growing interest for content companies and investing in foreign content as well. So to take advantage of these opportunities, obviously, we need to be more ready than ever about, the way we inform ourselves about these countries and the business relationships that we might need to develop with these new partners. Okay, so this is a funny story. Usually at this point of my presentation, I go, "Can you read on the screen?" And everybody goes like, "No." And it is intentional, but I've never presented on such a big theater screen. So now I guess I'm asking the question, "Can you read?" And you go like, "Yeah." And I'm like, okay, my script doesn't work anymore. Anyways, the point is that I know there's a lot of information that I just threw to you in a very short amount of time. So allow me to repeat that these reports, both the one that was released in February and the update, are available on our website. However, if you don't feel like reading through the 22 pages of the report in February and the 28 pages of the updated posted in July, I strongly advise you to go into the July report, the latest one, and print this page. I mean, it pretty much summarizes, everything I've presented to you, and it's a great reference to keep close by, honestly. Google CMF trends. Nobody knows that. Do you know your phone number?
Actually, I get your email.
I don't even know my phone, no, my phone number I know, but we tend to forget where the phone numbers of our friends. So CMF Trends is, if you do that either on your browsing or in Google, whatever, you're gonna find it. So I don't know if there's time for questions, but I'm done. Thank you for your, well, no, no, Caitlin went like, thank you for your attention. She's the boss. I like that.
Thank you, Catalina.
Thank you.